Can you zoom in on his name? There it is. You know how he pronounces it? Kill? Yeah, Kill, dude. It's a killer name. It's a Kyler name, Kyle. How did it get spelled like that?
My name is spelled this way because it's a combination of my mom and dad's names. It's like Christian and Mabel.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Dude. I love that. Awesome, man. How often do you think about American Indians?
I'm going to be honest, probably not a lot.
So all this land was these people who lived here. And then go forward. And then in the end, they get pushed off onto these small territories here. So now the question becomes, okay, so what's going on these lands? What do you think life is like on those lands? And look at how these poverty rates have just barely, right? Percent population with at least a high school education. The way sexual violence and assault is talked about, it's not if Native women are going to be assaulted. It's when. You would see yourself as a minority.
Yeah.
And suddenly I'm saying, yeah, you're a minority from one perspective, but from another one, you have a lot of power. Let me ask you this, does your family own land here in the US? Do you own a house?
Yeah, we do.
And do you want to own a home?
Hopefully, yes.
Uh-huh.
I think everyone does.
How often do you think about American Indians?
I'm gonna be honest, probably not a lot.
Uh-huh. What keeps you? What do you think? Like,
I do hear about like Indians getting displaced from their homes like all the time on like social media, but like other than that, like I don't really think about it that much.
do you know anything? And if so, what do you know about the sociological experience, the social indicators, economic indicators, et cetera, of American Indians, Native Americans?
I don't really know that much.
Yeah?
To be honest, yeah.
Okay. All right, man. This is one of the early maps of the U.S., right? And this is from the mid 1600s, late 1600s, okay? These are the towns that were mapped out by the initial Europeans who were here, okay? This is all, there's nothing here because there was nothing here. It's just because they hadn't mapped it yet, okay? So go to the next slide. But this is the U.S., right? These are all all this land was lived on by the indigenous people who came down from up here, the Bering Strait. They crossed over from Asia, the Bering Strait, and came down through here. And all the land, so go back one. So the only thing that mattered, the only people were here were when the Europeans, or down here, the Spanish settled. But otherwise, it's empty, okay? Go forward again. But in fact, all of the land is lived on, including, they just didn't map out Mexico, but the same thing, okay? Now, so it makes me think about land and dispossession in a different kind of way. So let me show you a map. Do you have any idea, do you know what reservations are?
Yeah.
Do you know where they are? Do you have any sense of it? Like what native peoples own in the United States?
Somewhere in Oklahoma, I know there's like a reservation there, but like other than that, I don't know like where else would it be.
Uh-huh. And do you have a sense of how reservations got created?
Not too much, no. I didn't really learn about it.
Okay, all right. So listen, go forward one slide. So, here are the main reservation, what are considered to be Indian lands, right? And, there are native peoples all over the United States, right? But these are the reservations. These are the territories that were identified for indigenous Native Americans, American Indians, okay? So that's it right there. So all this land was these people who lived here. And then go forward. And then in the end, they get pushed off onto these small territories here, okay? That's it. That's what you all get. I mean, you can live among everybody else, but in the end, that's what you get. We're going to take everything, and we're going to give you that. So now the question becomes, okay, so what's going on these lands? What do you think life is like on those lands?
From what I know, they have like their own set of laws because like they're not under the U.S. are they? I don't think they're under the U.S. government. So from what I see on like social media, I know like some people would go there and like literally like traffic people because like there's no laws there. That's from the most part. That's what I know.
Yeah, no, there are laws there, and there are, but
They're different.
But they're different, yeah, tribal laws, yep. And by the way, there are 574 federally recognized tribes in the U.S., okay? So now, but what's interesting is that you are saying, hey, I want to buy a house, I want to buy land. So can you go back one? So you're going to put, wherever you put your house is on red land, right? It's on land that's been taken from other people, not really that long ago. And then go forward. So you're not going to buy a house here on any of these little red spots. You're not going to buy a house, but anywhere else you could buy land and buy a house, and it's going to be on other people's land. Now your family comes from the Philippines, right? So like, okay, relatively recently, who came? Your parents or your grandparents?
My parents.
Okay, your parents, they came here, and they're like showing up on the shores of the U.S. saying like, okay, we're going to have a start here in the United States, right? And our son Kyle is going to get an education, and so this is going to be great, and he'll have upward mobility, and he will buy land. But now I'm going to walk you through some data of American Indians, okay, on these lands. All right, so let's go to the first one. So first off, Native peoples in the U.S., the highest unemployment, lowest, all those things, okay? Highest overall poverty, highest suicide rates. Okay, let me show you what this looks like in Pine Ridge. Go ahead. So the unemployment rate, 90% on the Pine Ridge Reservation. High school dropout rate, 70%. Life expectancy for women, 52 years, men, 47 years, okay? Alcoholism affects 80% of families, and population, people who are living below the U.S. federal poverty line, 97%. So wait, so you want to put your house on land that's taken from somebody else. They're squeezed into this, they're not, now these people, this lineage of people are living on this reservation, and that's their lives. And somehow you got to hold that. But Chris, you don't know anything about it, so then you can just kind of go through, right? Just because kind of how it is with us. We don't know, so we just move forward, and life is okay. Changes in poverty rates. Now, I don't have the data from 2010, 2020, but in a way I didn't really need it because it hasn't changed that much from 2000. And look at how these poverty rates have just barely, right? Except Pine Ridge has absolutely increased. Okay. Go to the next one. Percent population with at least a high school education. These are adults. Dude, look, with at least a high school education, man. Look at the Navajo res, 25%. The way sexual violence and assault is talked about, it's not if Native women are going to be assaulted. It's when. So when women, empowered women, and I know this from friends who work with women on the res, right? The empowerment groups for women are built not around the possibility of being assaulted by men. It's what to do when it happens.
It's almost like they're sure it's going to happen.
Yeah, because it's so prevalent. The 84% highest in the nation, right? And the thing is that most violence is, and this is different. Indigenous peoples, Native peoples are the only group for which this is true. The violence committed against them is primarily, overwhelmingly, by people who are not of their group. So most violence committed against black people is by other black people. Most violence committed against white people is by other white people. Most violence committed against Filipino Americans is by other Filipino Americans, right? But that's not true here.
Yeah, like going back into like what I was saying earlier, like how they have like tribal laws.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that plays a big part on like why like non-native men go into like their reservations and then like commit these crimes because they know they can get away with it.
Yeah. And so, but in the end, right, I think about the history of native peoples, and this is where history is important. And if you want to think about Israel and Palestine, you have to study history. Like, you cannot start today. You cannot start last month, last year, 10 years ago. You can't start at just the creation of the state of Israel. Like, you really have to dig in. It calls for that. And I think, wow, to understand this, it calls for us to, I don't know, there's a kind of a responsibility that you have taken on, by the way, but you've decided to immigrate here. So you might be Filipino, but once you enter into this culture, the power is asymmetrical, because now you've got putting you up against somebody a native person, like, it's asymmetrical power. You're a student at Penn State. You're going to graduate, and you're probably going to buy a house on red land. And like, oh, you know what I mean? It's like, do you see it like asymmetrical? Like, do you think about that as a Filipino? Because you see yourself, Filipino, you would see yourself as a minority.
Yeah.
And suddenly I'm saying, yeah, you're a minority from one perspective, but from another one, you have a lot of power. How is that?
I just feel like, in all honesty, I don't think I can really do much about it.
You don't have to do anything. Yeah, you don't have to do anything. But if your head is scrambled a little bit, I think you become a better person, because you think about moral and ethical issues in different ways. So this is the pipeline that was being built, coming down from Trans-Canada Pipeline, and bringing gas down into the lower 48. And just look at the destruction of the land, man. The land that is sacred to native peoples. And then these people who are defending the sacred, defending the land, are out there on their own, speaking into the vortex of this empty space to other people who are busy living their lives and not paying attention. Because we can't pay attention to every issue. But when I look at these are the ancestors of the indigenous peoples of the United States. I think, where are their voices, man? Where are their voices?
The reason why most people stay silent about it is because, like, it's a problem that doesn't really affect them or the people around them, is what I feel.
Mm-hmm. If it doesn't affect us or the people around us, then we don't. Like, let's say your grandparents stole something, and they passed it on to your parents, and your parents pass it on to you, and the person they stole it from is, like, now completely out of the picture. At what point in time does that thing become yours?
I don't think it doesn't really become mine if it's stolen.
Well, the land you're going to build your house on is stolen. So at what point in time are you allowed to not think about that?
I guess never.
I don't know. No, I don't know, because very few people think about it. We don't think about it. So, like, it's a question. If I take your cell phone and I steal it from you and I give it to somebody else, and they give it to somebody else, and they give it to somebody else, and that person doesn't really know that it's stolen from you, and then someone comes along and says, hey, I'm taking your cell phone. They're like, wait a minute, this is it's mine. Right? It was a gift. My friend gave it to me. So I think this is a question, right? At what point in time is it yours? Does something become yours or somebody else's?
If you kind of like pay for it, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, maybe if you have the power. Here's power is asymmetrical. You have the power. You have citizenship here, right? You have money. You're going to buy the title and the deed for a property. It's going to be yours. And the law is behind you. The law that the white man, right, created, built around their idea of what was just and what was right, which was to put the indigenous peoples on the reservations and take their land and be in their land. So it's like, well, you have that power. So it's like, okay, well, then it's yours, I guess. But this is an issue that's in play all the time. It's an issue that's in play in Israel and Palestine. You know, like sometimes people would say, hey, why talk about this, or why are we talking about it? Because it's these kinds of things that make us better than what we are. And it's a willingness to wrestle with some of these things that make us, that make the world, that allow us to confront or deal with injustice.